Here are case studies in debate, getting into active, interactive, and engaging formats for teaching and learning. Instructors can use planned and spontaneous activities. In a planned activity, students have the time often to work together, and the public performance can be very energizing and engaging. Debates can also be used for spontaneous activities when an issue arises in class, and students are asked to play the roles that would be involved. This can be a wonderful way to promote empathy and understanding of a range of perspectives on any particular issue. Typically, student engagement increases with active and interactive learning. Debriefing becomes important, especially when emotions run high. Debates require varied assessments. It's not just paper and pencil tests, but how students perform in the public arena, how they think and rethink the various issues. Instructors should be alert to alternatives to debate, how dialogue can help people shift from win-lose to cooperative and creative learning. We're all very familiar with pro and con and one side or the other side, especially in the political arena. But that polarization can undermine learning as people rethink their positions and move towards more defensible positions. So here are some examples where I taught at Kyunghee University's Graduate Institute of Peace Studies in the north of Seoul, South Korea. This student was making her case for what will promote reconciliation between North and South Korea. A challenging topic because from the headlines in the West anyway, there is quite a bit of aggressive activity in the North. And she was making a case for reconciliation between the two countries. This student picked up the question of Russia's conflict with the Ukraine. She herself was born in Siberia and brings a deep understanding of all the complexities involved. A simplistic position on one side or the other does not do justice to the issues at play, in this case or in any case really. Solutions will eventually involve diplomacy and negotiation. The challenge in any debate for any case study is where and how do you find the expertise and the information you need to develop a full understanding. This South Korea student was very adamant in her criticism of their K-12 schools because, she argued, they are excessively competitive and thereby undermine both the joy for learning and any inherent creativity. Nearly all students go to a private after-school program for 3 to 4 hours after a full day in school. The opposing views pointed to very high test scores and the dramatic rise in prosperity in South Korea. So challenging, complex, real issues that these students knew directly. Another student from South Korea had spent a wonderful year at a Japanese university and wanted to challenge the widespread condemnation of Japan that existed across South Korea. Remember that Japan had invaded South Korea and had committed many atrocities. She had to rethink her own prejudices and learn to challenge those who spoke without having had direct experience. So it wasn't a dichotomous sort of activity of right, wrong, the Japanese were wrong and should be condemned. She was looking at a more complex analysis and how she had to change her thinking, and that staying stuck in just universal condemnation was not helpful for her or anyone else. This student made a strong case for a vegetarian diet as one way to make peace with the planet. This was a course on peacemaking. She presented convincing data about the comparable food value in vegetables, wheat, rice, and beans, for example, when compared with the amount of resources needed to raise meat. Obviously, this had economic arguments, first world and developing world arguments, so very complex, and she was challenged to make strong arguments across the board so that the audience would be able to make an informed decision. Let's go back to Karen Rottenberg's observations. What values were represented in these debates? Rottenberg wrote, Debates can serve to clarify values to the participants by allowing them an opportunity to reflect deeply on their convictions as they develop the foundation they need to effectively debate the topic. So the arguments about a vegetarian diet, for instance, challenge everyone to reflect on their own eating and their own values, given the information that was presented, and a challenge to them to think about making changes possibly. Rottenberg also writes that, on the other hand, debates can serve to muddy values when the participants rely on destructive tactics to win a debate, such as mudslinging at their opponents, or they rely on feelings without concern for facts. In the case of North and South Korea and reunification, we often hear politicians on one side or the other, in one country or the other, proclaiming loudly against the other. So it took some real skill for the student to present the complexities and not get caught up in the mudslinging, for example. In my book with Suzanne Burgoyne, the question is, how can conflicts in these Korean debates be considered allies? Conflicts can be an ally if it forces us to look more deeply into an issue. On stage or screen, differences among characters can produce obstacles and tensions, adding believability and spice to the plot as it unfolds. So the student going into Japan with her own prejudices that she had learned growing up had to challenge her own thinking. She saw those prejudices as a real obstacle and a tension point for her experiences in Japan. Can we use the lives and struggles, dreams, conflicts of the greats in our fields to add life to our lessons? The current president of South Korea is a woman, and she has argued for reunification. It'd be interesting for students who may have grown up hearing that that was not possible and how the North was personified with evil. It'd be interesting for them to research the life of their own president in South Korea and try to understand more of why she came to that position. Michael Kahn and Deborah Flick have written an interesting set of books on debate and its problems and how to move towards dialogue. They argue there's a need to move beyond the polarizing effects of debate. So as opposed to two camps, pro-reconciliation, anti-reconciliation, what about the space in between? What about all those arguments in between the polarized ends of the continuum? How do we get there and explore that terrain? These two authors write about the need to move towards the unifying effects of true dialogue, where those in the North can look at arguments from the South and weigh them honestly and openly, and vice versa. We want to emphasize how to promote learning as opposed to winning a debate. Learning from the presentations made, how empathy can grow in development with accurate, fair portrayals of all the arguments, how understanding can grow. Fisher and Ury, in Getting to Yes and The Third Side, argue for the skills and ideas that help channel the energy unleashed by debates into constructive discussions, negotiations, and mediations. How does the presentation on vegetarianism and the critique of the meat industry, how could the energy unleashed by that and all those established positions along the continuum help move towards this constructive discussions, negotiations, and mediations? So the guidelines for debate can be valued for the energy they spark, the increased motivations as students research their positions, and the practice they get for participating in public discussions. We're really talking about citizenship skills, but not just to simple-mindedly follow one politician or the other, but to really be informed and participate in those public decisions. Two, because most people are closer to the mean of mainstream opinion, debates are especially useful in surfacing a range of more diverse opinions. People might be hesitant to voice minority viewpoints or to challenge publicly, especially in a public setting where perhaps more aggressive debaters are attacking and defending. Instructors, however, must be alert to provide the guidance needed so that debates do not slide into emotional, competitive attacks that leave scars and derail learning. So with role-playing, people can take on different roles and voice minority opinions, but there must be time provided at the end for students to disengage from those roles and those emotions. So questions to ponder. How can you use debate when teaching about a controversial or complex topic like those represented here? And what is the value of creative, active, and interactive efforts to explore questions and topics for student learning about these topics?